A dark cloud rises above the horizon, and the sound reaches you before the shape does. Millions of wings, a metallic hum shaking the ground, a shadow that swallows the sun. Now imagine this swarm has no interest in crops. It hunts men. This is the story of Abaddon, king of the abyss, and the fifth trumpet of Revelation 9. To understand who Abaddon is, you have to enter a very specific text, written on a Greek island around the year 95 of the 1st century, in the middle of the reign of Emperor Domitian. The Apostle John, exiled to the island of Patmos, records a vision that has fascinated theologians, historians, artists and philosophers for almost 2,000 years. And in the 9th chapter of that vision, a name appears that shows up almost nowhere else in the New Testament, spoken in 2 languages at the same time, as if the author himself wanted to make sure the reader understood exactly what he was looking at. Abaddon in Hebrew, Apollyon in Greek, the destroyer. The name carries a weight the modern reader does not always feel. In the Old Testament, the Hebrew word Abaddon appears only 6 times, and always tied to a very specific idea: destruction, ruin, the place of the dead, the deepest layer of Sheol. In the book of Job, chapter 26, verse 6, Sheol is naked before God, and Abaddon has no covering. In Proverbs 15, verse 11, Sheol and Abaddon are laid open before the Lord. Psalm 88, verse 11 asks whether God's steadfast love is declared in the grave, and whether his faithfulness is proclaimed in Abaddon. In every one of those passages, the word is not the name of a person, but of a place, a void, a dark chamber under the world where destruction lives. Then, more than 1,000 years after those texts were written, John takes that ancient word, that impersonal noun, and does something no other biblical author had done before. He gives Abaddon a face. He gives it a throne. He gives it an army. Silence. Because that is what the reader feels when the 5th trumpet sounds. In the sequence of Revelation 9, a star falls from heaven to earth. The Greek text is careful with the tense of the verb. The star has fallen. It is not falling now. The event is complete. And to that fallen star is given the key of the shaft of the abyss. Notice the language. The key is given. It is not owned. It is not stolen. Someone hands it over. And when the shaft is opened, smoke rises from it as from a great furnace, so thick that the sun and the air are darkened. You have already seen images like this. When Mount Vesuvius buried Pompeii in the year 79, survivors described the sky turning into night at midday, the air turning to hot ash, the sun disappearing behind a wall of black gas for more than 18 hours straight. Multiply that scene by an entire geography, and you begin to reach what John is describing. Except the smoke of Revelation 9 is not made of pulverized volcanic rock. It is made of something else entirely, and from it emerge the locusts. And here the text refuses to let the reader relax, because John immediately explains what these creatures are not. They are not natural locusts. A real locust swarm can cover an area of 1,200 square kilometers, contain up to 80 billion individuals, and consume in a single day the same amount of food that 35,000 human beings would eat. Historians of the ancient Near East describe locust plagues that devastated the harvests of entire kingdoms, forcing whole populations into starvation. According to the Roman historian Julius Obsequens, in the year 125 before Christ, a locust swarm destroyed the wheat production of the North African province, and 800,000 people are said to have died of hunger in the following years. That is what a locust does. It eats plants. The creatures of the 5th trumpet do the opposite. They are commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, nor any green plant, nor any tree, but only those people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. Their weapons are not jaws. Their weapons are scorpion tails, and their orders are not to kill, they are ordered to torment. For 5 months. 5 months. The precise number is not decorative. Entomologists have observed that the natural life cycle of certain locust species in the Middle East lasts almost exactly 5 months from the emergence of the nymph to the death of the adult insect. John writes to a first-century audience that watched, generation after generation, the harvest cycles of Judea, Egypt, and Asia Minor being destroyed by these swarms. When he says 5 months, he is not inventing a random number. He is quoting the memory of every farmer who had ever lost everything to a plague of insects. He is saying, this torment will last as long as a real plague lasts, from the first cry to the last silence. But now comes the description that shatters any attempt to fit these creatures into a simple category. Their appearance was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold. Their faces were like human faces. Their hair was like the hair of women. Their teeth were like the teeth of lions. They had scales like iron breastplates, and the sound of their wings was like the noise of many chariots and horses rushing into war. You are no longer reading about insects. You are reading about war machines, about cavalry, about armored formations. And the modern reader, watching the images that John describes, is inevitably struck by a discomfort that ancient commentators never felt, because they did not have the frame of reference to feel it. The description of Revelation 9 reads, in the 21st century, like the description of a fully mechanized combat unit. Some interpreters see helicopters, others see armored vehicles, others see something the language of the first century did not yet have words to describe, and use the closest analog available: locusts wearing armor. And the crucial detail is that these creatures have a king. Ordinary locusts, according to Proverbs 30, verse 27, have no king. That is one of the marvels of the natural insect. It operates in perfect formation without any central command. But these creatures, the ones that emerge from the abyss, do have a king. His name is Abaddon, Apollyon, the destroyer. And here you arrive at a question the biblical text does not answer directly, and which has divided commentators for centuries. Who exactly is Abaddon? Some early church fathers, reading Revelation in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, identified Abaddon with Satan himself. Irenaeus of Lyon, writing around the year 180, associated the destroyer with the ancient adversary. Others, like Hippolytus of Rome, treated him as a distinct entity, a specific angel, one of the powers of the abyss. In the medieval period, theologians such as Thomas Aquinas discussed Abaddon as a demonic prince subordinate to Satan, a general commanding a specific army under a larger hierarchy. And in modern exegesis, a third possibility emerges, that Abaddon is not a fallen entity at all, but an angel of God, an executor of divine judgment who wields destruction the way an executioner wields a blade, not out of malice, but out of function. That last reading is more disturbing than it appears at first glance, because it forces the reader to sit with a very specific idea that in the moral architecture of the Bible, destruction is not always evil. Sometimes destruction is justice. Sometimes destruction is the final resort of a mercy that has been exhausted. Sometimes the angel who arrives with a sword drawn is not there because God abandoned the world, but because the world abandoned itself, and someone has to close the door on what remains. Consider the precedent. In the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 23, an entity called the Destroyer moves through Egypt on the night of the 10th plague. The text is precise. The Lord will pass through to strike the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts, he will pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to enter your houses. Notice the language. The destroyer is described as a distinct agent, an executor who acts under command. And that agent kills every firstborn of Egypt in a single night. According to demographic estimates by historians of ancient Egypt, the population of the country in the 15th century before Christ was somewhere between 3 million and 4.5 million people. If the estimate of firstborn deaths applies proportionally, you are looking at between 200,000 and 350,000 casualties in one night. In a single darkness, the entire economic, political, and military future of an empire was rewritten, and the agent that carried out that judgment was called, in Hebrew, the Mashchith, the Destroyer. Some rabbinical traditions from the intertestamental period equate the Mashchith of Exodus with the Abaddon of the later prophetic imagination. Not the same being necessarily, but the same function, the same office, the angel who arrives when the season of warning ends and the season of consequence begins. And here is the loop that Revelation 9 opens and only partially closes, because the fifth trumpet does not describe the end of the story. It describes a phase, a window, 5 months in which the creatures of the abyss are permitted to move on the earth, torment those who lack the seal of God, and then withdraw. They do not kill. They cause pain so intense that men will seek death and will not find it. They will long to die, and death will flee from them. Read that sentence again, because it contains one of the most disturbing images in the entire Bible. You are not looking at a scene of extermination. You are looking at a scene of forced awareness. A humanity that has spent generations refusing to face its own condition is suddenly locked in a room with itself, unable to escape into distraction, unable to escape into oblivion, unable even to escape into death. 5 months of confrontation with what the person truly is when nothing external protects them. 5 months of the abyss reaching upward and touching the surface of the world. Ancient commentators, from Victorinus of Petau in the 3rd century to the Venerable Bede in the 8th, tried to fit that period into concrete historical events. Some saw the invasions of the barbarian tribes over the Roman Empire. Others saw the Arab expansion of the 7th century, which under the early caliphates conquered, in less than 100 years, an area of 13 million square kilometers, from the Iberian Peninsula to the border of India. The military campaigns of the 7th and 8th centuries were read by many medieval commentators as a fulfillment of the 5th trumpet, and the reference to human faces, hair of women and teeth of lions was interpreted as an ethnographic description of desert cavalry. Others saw the Mongol conquests of the 13th century, when Genghis Khan and his descendants killed, according to conservative estimates, 40 million people, roughly 1/10 of the global population of the period. But every one of those interpretations, no matter how detailed, shared a common structure. The interpreter took Abaddon and dressed him in the clothes of his own generation. The destroyer became whichever army seemed most terrifying to the person reading. And that impulse itself reveals something important about the text. Abaddon is not simply a name, he is an archetype. He is the shape that catastrophe takes when catastrophe is no longer accidental, when destruction becomes intentional, systematic, tolerated by heaven for a specific and limited window. Meanwhile, the archaeology of the ancient Near East preserves a discrete detail that connects the imagery of Revelation 9 to something much older. In excavations of the Palace of Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire between the 9th and 7th centuries before Christ, archaeologists found reliefs depicting armored warriors advancing behind carved images of scorpions and locusts. The Assyrian army, considered by many historians the first professional military of the ancient world, mobilized between 150,000 and 200,000 soldiers at the height of its power. And the terror they inspired was such that entire cities capitulated before a single arrow was fired. The book of Nahum in the Old Testament describes the fall of Nineveh in the year 612 before Christ and uses the same imagery that John will use 7 centuries later. Locusts, army, destroyer. The literary tradition of the Bible connects, from one end to the other, the same military figure, the swarm without number, the organized advance, the absolute silence after the passage. You already know this scene, even if you have never named it. Every generation has watched its own version of Abaddon cross the horizon. In the 20th century alone, historians estimate that armed conflicts killed approximately 231 million human beings, counting wars, purges, famines caused by war, and civilian bombings. The First World War killed roughly 20 million. The Second World War killed between 70 and 85 million, including 6 million Jews in the industrial machinery of the Holocaust. The Cambodian genocide, under the Khmer Rouge, killed between 1.5 and 2 million people in less than 4 years. The Rwandan genocide killed 800,000 people in exactly 100 days, at a pace of 1 death every 11 seconds. Each one of those events was, for those who lived through them, a fifth trumpet. Each one had its own Abaddon, and each one ended with the same question the Bible refuses to close: how much longer? That refusal to close is deliberate, because the text of Revelation 9 does not offer the reader the comfort of a specific date. It offers only the shape of what happens when the shape arrives. And when you strip away the debates over interpretation, the arguments over eschatological calendars, the disputes between premillennial and postmillennial schools, what remains is a much older warning, that the world is not held together by human strength. It is held together by a series of restraints, some visible and some invisible. And when those restraints are lifted, even for a limited window, what emerges is not chaos. What emerges is order, but an order that answers to a different king. The name of that king in Hebrew is Abaddon. Consider now a second detail that most commentators pass over quickly. John writes the name in Hebrew and then unusually translates it into Greek. He does the same thing only a handful of other times in the entire book of Revelation. In 16, verse 16, when he writes Armageddon. In 9, verse 11, when he writes Abaddon and Apollyon side by side. That bilingual insistence is not decorative, it is signaling. John is writing to a mixed audience, to Jewish Christians who understand Hebrew, to Gentile Christians who understand Greek, and to whoever in the following centuries would open the scroll of Patmos and try to understand what was happening. He wants everyone, in every generation, to understand exactly which name is being spoken. Because names in ancient biblical thought are not simply labels. Names are declarations of function. To know the name of an entity is to know its role in the moral architecture of creation. And when John gives Abaddon 2 names, he is doing what the writer of Genesis does when he lets Adam name the animals. He is establishing category, he is defining boundary, he is saying, this figure is not anonymous. This figure has a specific place in the order of things, and that place is destruction. The centuries after John continued to add layers to this figure. In the apocryphal literature of Judaism, especially in the Book of Enoch and in the Apocalypse of Baruch, texts written between the 3rd century before Christ and the 2nd century after Christ, Abaddon appears as one of the 7 angels who preside over the underworld regions. Each region has a distinct function. Some hold the souls of the righteous who await resurrection. Others hold the souls of the wicked who await judgment. And Abaddon presides over the deepest chamber, the place where the destruction of the world is stored in reserve, sealed and locked, until the moment when the seal is broken and the destruction is released. That imagery entered the imagination of medieval Christian art in a very specific way. In the illuminated manuscripts of the Beatus of Libana, produced in Spain between the 8th and 13th centuries, Abaddon is depicted as a crowned angel, standing above a pit of smoke, holding a golden key in one hand and a sword in the other. His posture is not one of malice, it is one of duty. He is not smiling, he is not enjoying. He is executing an order that only he can execute, and only because someone with greater authority handed him the key. That distinction between malice and duty is the axis on which the whole reading of Revelation 9 turns. If Abaddon is a malicious entity, then the fifth trumpet is an image of hell escaping into the world. If Abaddon is a dutiful entity, then the fifth trumpet is an image of heaven authorizing a controlled release for a specific and limited purpose that only heaven fully understands. Both readings have consequences. The first reading emphasizes the vulnerability of the world before evil. It teaches that there are forces in the moral universe that seek to destroy for the sake of destroying, and that the only defense against them is the seal of God on the forehead. The seal in the biblical text is not a physical mark. It is a covenant condition. It is a way of belonging. It is a declaration that this person is not merely a resident of the world, but a resident of a specific promise. The second reading emphasizes the sovereignty of God, even over instruments of judgment. It teaches that destruction is not autonomous, that even the deepest and most terrifying of angels operates within limits, that the abyss has a lid, and the lid has a key, and the key does not belong to Abaddon. It is given to him. In both readings, the human being who reads Revelation 9 emerges with the same instruction. Take seriously the reality that time is not infinite. Take seriously the reality that the world has ceilings and thresholds that most generations never see. Take seriously the reality that the same God who sends warnings also sends, when the warnings are ignored long enough, the angel with the key. And here the narrative closes a loop that John opened at the beginning of the 9th chapter, because the fifth trumpet is not the last one. There are 7 trumpets, and after the fifth comes the 6th, which releases 4 angels bound at the great river Euphrates, and an army of 200 million horsemen. And after the 6th comes the 7th, which announces that the kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of the Lord and of his Christ. The 5th trumpet is not the end. It is the beginning of the last countdown. 2,000 years after John wrote those words on the island of Patmos, the figure of Abaddon still moves through the corners of the human imagination. In literature, John Bunyan resurrected him in the 17th century as Apollyon, the dragon confronted by Christian in Pilgrim's Progress. In cinema, in painting, in poetry, in the sculpture of cathedrals, the crowned angel over the pit continues to look out toward whoever is willing to look back. And every time a civilization discovers that its restraints have been lifted, that its violence has escaped the reach of its laws, that its capacity to destroy has outpaced its capacity to protect, someone somewhere opens the book of Revelation to the 9th chapter and reads, in a low voice, the name that John left there in 2 languages. Abaddon, Apollyon, the destroyer. He is not a metaphor, he is not a symbol. He is a function of the moral universe that the Bible describes as being real, personal, and answering only to a specific chain of authority. And whether you read that description as literal cosmology, as prophetic imagery, or as sober warning, the effect on the honest reader is the same. You close the chapter and you find yourself asking the question the text does not answer. Whose forehead carries the seal? Because that, in the end, is the only division the 5th trumpet recognizes, not between rich and poor, not between powerful and weak, not between believer and unbeliever in any external sense. The seal is inward. It is a matter of belonging. And when the shaft of the abyss opens, when the smoke rises, when the creatures that are not creatures emerge with human faces and lions' teeth, the only distinction that matters is whether or not that mark has been made. The Apostle John dies at the end of the 1st century, exiled and alone, without seeing the fulfillment of anything he described. The generations that followed him tried to fit his vision into every catastrophe of their era, and every one of them was mistaken about the timing, and every one of them was correct about the shape. Because the shape does not change, the names of the empires change, the technology of the weapons changes, the dates on the calendar change. But the figure of the destroyer, crowned and dutiful, standing above the pit with a key in his hand, remains exactly where John left him, waiting. The text does not tell you when, the text tells you what. And what remains after 20 centuries of interpretation is a single sentence that summarizes the entire 9th chapter of Revelation. There is a door, there is a key, there is a king, and there is a seal that decides who walks through untouched and who does not. Whoever wrote those words on Patmos, whoever preserved them through the persecutions of the 2nd and 3rd centuries, whoever copied them by hand in the monasteries of the medieval world, whoever translated them into the vernacular of the Reformation, whoever printed them in the presses of the modern era, was not writing entertainment. He was writing testimony. He was writing what he had seen, and what he saw on that Aegean island in the middle of the reign of Domitian was a figure whose name he insisted on giving in 2 languages, so that no one in any century could pretend they had not been warned. Abaddon has a face. Abaddon has a throne. Abaddon has an army, and somewhere at a moment none of us can calculate, a hand that is not his hands him the key.